time get close to Christmas. One thing that a lot of churches do around this time of year is something that is called Blue Christmas.
I'll have a blue Christmas.
It is not a modern Christian tradition that we built around an Elvis Presley song, I swear, but I thought that for years. Blue Christmas is, in addition to being an excellent Elvis Presley song, and really, I think the anchor of the 1968 comeback Elvis special, we can all admit. Anyway, in addition to that, Blue Christmas is it's a kind of a modern tradition. It's a service that a lot of churches do around this time of year to acknowledge that the holidays, while they are joyful for a lot of people and in a lot of ways, they are also sad for a lot of people, especially if you've lost people in your life, right? The holidays are a time when you think about people that you've lost, and there can be a lot of grief and a lot of sadness. So Blue Christmas religious services around this time of year, it's kind of a sweet way to acknowledge that, to sort of make some space for that sadness and grief, with or without Elvis. A few days ago, a group of Presbyterian pastors organized a Blue Christmas service outside the ICE prison where they have been locking up immigrants in Portland, Oregon. Local news organizations, including the Oregonian newspaper, covered it. They reported that a lot of the people who came out for the prayers and carols and scripture readings at the gates of that facility for that Blue Christmas service, those were people who had never taken part in any kind of protest at that facility before. They'd maybe never protested anything before. They'd certainly never been to that ICE prison. One church member who had never been to that site before, never protested before, said, quote, "It feels like this is one small way to have, to kind of have some hope and light in the midst of darkness, to remind people that they aren't alone. There are a lot of us in the faith community that stand with them." This weekend, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem turned up in Chicago at the Navy Pier at a charity event that's held every year in Chicago around this time, where Christmas trees come in on a Coast Guard cutter, and then they get distributed to needy families in Chicago through local Chicago nonprofits. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was greeted this year by protesters. "The Grinch stole Christmas, but Kristi Noem stole my neighbors." Also, ICE are Herod's henchmen. If you know, you know. This one could maybe stick with her, I'm just imagining. Just big, bold letters. "Santa's watching, Kristi. Santa's watching." That was Chicago. This was Kenner, Louisiana this weekend, where they have adopted the whistles everybody used in Chicago to warn their neighbors about the presence of Trump's immigration agents. With Trump's agents now operating in places like Kenner, Louisiana. We've seen a whole bunch of Louisiana protests over the last few days, including this loud one in Kenner. Also protests at the Federal Building in New Orleans. We also saw anti-ICE, anti-Trump protesters dragged out of the New Orleans City Council meeting a few days ago. Those protesters were demanding no collaboration with ICE from their local leaders in the city of New Orleans. Trump's immigration agents also are making a big show of force in Minnesota right now. These are workers at the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport protesting in the bitter Minnesota cold against deportation flights that are being flown out of the airport where they work. This little 6-year-old boy is enrolled in school in Queens, New York. In Queens, New York this weekend, people rallied in support of him to demand that he and his dad be reunited and to demand that they be set free. This weekend, more than 1,200 New Yorkers underwent very practical training on how to safely observe and safely protest and safely try to protect their neighbors from Trump's immigration agents in anticipation that Trump's going to try some big New York operation sometime soon. There's huge training events in multiple parts of New York City this weekend just to train regular people how to respond, how to try to protect their immigrant neighbors if and when Trump's attack on New York comes. The mayor-elect of New York City is, of course, Zohran Mamdani. He gets sworn in on New Year's Day. But even in advance of Mayor-elect Mamdani's first day on the job as mayor, look at this that he just put out. It's about 90 seconds long. Watch this. He put this out to help people in New York get ready to stand up against an anticipated attack by the federal government.
Last weekend, ICE attempted to raid Canal Street and detain our immigrant neighbors. As mayor, I'll protect the rights of every single New Yorker, and that includes the more than 3 million immigrants who call this city their home. But we can all stand up to ICE if you know your rights. If you encounter ICE, these are the things that every New Yorker should know. First, ICE cannot enter into private spaces like your home, school, or a private area of your workplace without a judicial warrant signed by a judge. That looks like this. If ICE does not have a judicial warrant signed by a judge, you have the right to say, I do not consent to entry, and the right to keep your door closed. Sometimes ICE will show you paperwork that looks like this and tell you that they have the right to arrest you. That is false. ICE is legally allowed to lie to you, but you have the right to remain silent. If you're being detained, you may always ask, am I free to go, repeatedly, until they answer you. You are legally allowed to film ICE, as long as you do not interfere with an arrest. It is important to remain calm during any interaction with ICE or law enforcement. Do not impede their investigation, resist arrest, or run. One last thing. New Yorkers have a constitutional right to protest, and when I'm mayor, we will protect that right. New York will always welcome immigrants, and I will fight each and every day to protect, support, and celebrate our immigrant brothers and sisters.
Okay, that is why he is a bigger deal in Democratic politics and in national politics than just being the mayor of the country's largest city, right? How well done that is, how compelling that is. But B, that is also quality and very specific advice. I mean, when that's a practical thing. When he shows you on screen, this is what a judicial warrant looks like. When he gestures as that on screen, like this is where you check for the judge's name and signature, and then he shows you next, by the way, this is not a judicial warrant. This is what they will try to tell you is a judicial warrant, but it's not one. That's just really helpful, really practical advice in terms of potentially interacting with Trump's immigration agents. That's New York City. In Arizona, Democratic Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva was pepper sprayed by Trump's immigration agents and had pepper balls shot at her feet after she had identified herself as a member of Congress. That was in response to a Trump immigration raid of some kind in her district in Tucson, Arizona. In Nebraska, they've tried to do a kind of Florida alligator Alcatraz style thing where the state of Nebraska is running an immigration prison for the federal government, but they're running it as a state facility. One Democratic state senator named Michaela Cavanaugh from Omaha, Nebraska, she has now repeatedly turned up at the gates of that state-run facility demanding to be let in to do oversight. She's in a good position to make that demand. There's a state law in Nebraska that says Nebraska state legislators are legally entitled to visit any correctional facility run by the state, quote, at any time. So she keeps turning up, demanding to be let in. So far, they will not let her in, but she's making repeated demands and going public about it. And that is quite obviously grounds for a potent lawsuit, right? It's also a potent reminder to members of Congress all across the country and to state legislators in these places where the states have agreed to run these immigration prisons for Trump. It's a reminder that elected officials in most cases, members of Congress, state legislators, in most cases, the law says they must be allowed in to inspect these facilities, in most cases without notice, so that they can see what's going on in there. It's a privilege afforded to elected officials that regular Americans can't employ, which means a lot more elected officials should be taking advantage of that, should be doing that in a lot more places, should be doing what State Senator Michaela Cavanaugh is doing in Nebraska. I mean, has your member of Congress been doing that? Demanding to be let in to whatever federal immigration facility they're taking people to from your state? Do you know? Your state rep, your state senator? I mean, when elected officials do that, when they show up at the gates, when they show up to say, I'm here to see what's happening, they can get in a way that regular people can't. and even journalists can't in most cases. They can get in to see what's happening there. They can tell the people. They can tell the press. It makes the administration feel the pressure of knowing they're being watched, knowing they're not in a black box or a legal black hole. They will have to answer for what they're doing one way or another someday. Here's another way that point is being made very potently. A political action committee, a PAC called Women's March Win, has started running these ads in places where Trump's immigration agents are doing these big showy operations. They've run them in places like Chicago, also in Charlotte, North Carolina. But it's interesting, this ad, I'm going to show it to you in a second. These ads are not targeting the public or even elected officials in these places. They're running these in places where Trump's immigration agents are being surged because they want the immigration agents themselves to see them. Watch.
You will be caught. You will be removed, and you will never return.
Video to a monitor shows the moment the ICE agents
Daddy, how's your day?
A mask can't hide you from your neighbors, your children, and God. They'll know. You can walk away before the shame follows you home.
Daddy, how's your day?
I mentioned those ads are running in places where Trump's immigration agents are being deployed in large numbers, places like Chicago and Charlotte, North Carolina. They've also run those ads on TV in West Palm Beach, Florida. I guess on the unlikely chance that somebody with an itchy conscience might be watching there as well. Recently here on the show, we reported on a scrappy, beautiful little community on the coast of Oregon, a town called Newport, Oregon, which is a Dungeness crab fishing town. The Trump administration apparently wants to put some kind of immigration prison in that town. The Trump administration also took away from that town the Coast Guard rescue helicopter there. There'd been a Coast Guard rescue helicopter stationed in Newport, Oregon, because of the Dungeness crab fleet, because of the extremely risky, extremely dangerous work of that fishing fleet there. The Newport, Oregon Coast Guard rescue helicopter has rescued more than 500 people in the past 10 years. And then the Trump administration, with no notice, with no local consultation at all, they took it away. So we reported here recently on locals in that town protesting against the removal of that rescue helicopter and protesting against the Trump administration's apparent effort to put some kind of ICE prison in that town. One Texas contractor that had been seeking land in the town near the airport, presumably for the immigration prison, that contractor pulled out and dropped their request to the town as soon as the locals started to protest. Well, now the town of Newport has got their helicopter back as well. Local protests, huge local turnout at town halls and local government meetings, both Oregon U.S. senators getting involved, a lawsuit brought by the locals that was then joined by the state. They, as of now, have their rescue helicopter back, just in time for the start of the crab season. The local state rep in that town told us today that he and a local fishermen's wives group were told by the Trump administration that they'd taken the rescue helicopter away in the first place because of personnel issues, staffing shortages. The Trump administration then reportedly told a different story to the state's U.S. senators, telling them, no, it's not staffing shortages or personnel issues. They told the senators it was a maintenance issue for the helicopter for some reason. But then, wouldn't you know it, once the Trump administration got dragged into court by these locals who sued them, the Trump administration had to admit under oath in court, yes, actually, they moved the rescue helicopter, the Coast Guard rescue helicopter, out of Newport, Oregon, because the Coast Guard was told to send a helicopter down to San Diego to fly around the Mexican border and look for immigrants. That was the story. The comprehensive freaking uproar in that town has got them their Coast Guard rescue helicopter back, and so far it means no immigration prison is going up in that town either. Sometimes when you fight, you win. Tonight we're going to be talking to the app developer who made the app, the Ice Block app. Remember this one? We talked about this on the show as well. The Ice Block app is an app for your phone. It helped people report to their neighbors when they saw Trump's immigration agents operating in their neighborhood. The Trump administration went to Apple, the literally multi-trillion-dollar company, Apple. The Trump administration went to Apple and told Apple that they needed to take the Ice Block app out of the App Store. And Apple caved immediately, did it. They took the app down. They responded like they were some little pushover, scared operation that only wants to please the big bad bully because they have no choice. Apple did not stand up for itself, but the Ice Block guy, the guy who made the app, he is standing up. He told us when this happened, he told us here on this show that he had a plan to fight this, even if Apple wouldn't fight it. Well, now today he has put that plan into place. He has put that plan into effect. He's going to join us live here tonight. You are going to want to see that. Tonight, we're also going to talk with a former director of the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. He's sounding the alarm that with the Trump administration having now pretty well decimated the CDC and really broken what is supposed to be our public health safety net as a country, he is sounding the alarm that we're going to need to approach those challenges some other way. That we're going to need to do something else as a country to make up for what is now a broken, decimated, ruined CDC. Because sometimes you fight to protect someone or protect something. Sometimes you have to fight to build something new, to take the place of part of our government, part of our country that these guys have destroyed. The Trump administration right now seems to be at a weak ebb. They at least seem to be flailing in all sorts of interesting ways. Today, you might have seen Alina Habba had to resign. Trump has appointed a bunch of more or less wildly unqualified U.S. attorneys, top federal prosecutors in multiple states. These are people who are such insanely inappropriate choices for these jobs. They apparently can't be confirmed even by the same Senate that confirmed Pete Hegseth. Like, that's so low a bar, you can't limbo under it if you had 3 sets of knees. I mean, Trump has nevertheless tried to keep these wildly unqualified U.S. attorney picks in these jobs beyond the limits of the law, because they can't stay there indefinitely if they can't be confirmed by the Senate. Multiple courts have now told Trump that he can't do that, that these people are not serving legally. Today, after stomping and huffing about it for a while, today, Alina Habba in New Jersey had to resign as U.S. attorney. The others who were appointed in circumstances similar to hers will likely have to resign as well. It's just a matter of when. Well, not only was that indictment against Tish James thrown out because Trump didn't properly appoint the U.S. attorney who brought that case, then a few days ago, Trump's Justice Department tried to bring the indictment against Tish James all over again under a new prosecutor. A grand jury told them to take a hike, refused to indict Tish James when they went back to a grand jury and asked them to do it again. And now today, ProPublica reports that if Trump really wants Tish James to be charged with mortgage fraud for this particular paperwork issue he sees in her mortgage paperwork, well, he should probably check his own files, because Trump's own mortgage paperwork from his own mortgages in Florida turns out to be filled out exactly the same way that Tish James's paperwork was filled out. Oops. Oops. Maybe he will turn himself in to be prosecuted. So we'll get into that tonight. The Trump administration and the president himself appear to have no idea how to handle the growing uproar over their repeated obviously illegal bombings of civilian boats in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific. Trump said last week that he would, of course, release the video of the second strike in September, where they apparently deliberately bombed civilian survivors of a first strike on one of those boats. Well, now today, Trump said actually he won't do that, and he's denying that he ever said that he would. It was only last week. Do you really not remember? At the end of this month, Americans' health insurance premiums are due to skyrocket because of the policy changes Republicans forced through in Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill. Trump keeps saying that he's going to unveil a fix for that he's got some idea, he's got some plan. He pretty clearly doesn't seem to have any plan at all for how to fix that, which is going to be a big disaster for tens of millions of American families in less than a month. At the end of this month, when all of those premiums are going to go through the roof. And it is very clearly Trump and the Republicans' fault. You think he's unpopular now? Wait till that kicks in. Trump also appears to be dealing with his guttering out approval ratings on the economy and on inflation in particular by just stopping producing government data on inflation from here on out. Because surely if you don't publish data about it, then it won't really be happening, right? No one will notice what they're actually paying. Americans are fighting against this administration in all sorts of interesting ways, and this president appears as weak and unpopular as he has ever been in all of his time in public life. You're seeing that combination of his weakness and Americans' appetite to fight him. You're seeing it in, frankly, every court except the United States Supreme Court. You're seeing it increasingly now, even in the Congress. You're seeing it at the black site prison gates amid the Presbyterian church ladies who have never protested anything before, but where they're now holding a blue Christmas service now at the gates of the prison for the people locked up inside. Today, we just released 2 new episodes of Burn Order, which is my new podcast about the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II and the remarkable fight against that. Non-Japanese Americans didn't come out in the streets and protest that when it happened. When their neighbors were rounded up and forced out of their homes and put on trains by the military and taken away to prison camps, to what FDR called concentration camps. Non-Japanese Americans did not protest in the streets. It's one of the hardest things to come to terms with from that very dark time in our nation's history. That said, there were some non-Japanese Americans who nevertheless found ways at least to help, at least to try to mitigate some of the harm, at least to go to the gates of the prisons. And that is its own kind of defiance against the mistreatment of others.
There was no organized protest. There were no petitions. There was no effort to challenge the mass removal. People watched on the streets as the buses took them away. What hurt them the most, what was very painful for many of them, was that America had turned their back on them.
That was true for most Americans. There was no mass movement of protests or loud objections or shows of solidarity. There was nothing at scale, at least. But that meant that the people who did stand up, the people who did take individual action alone, that took a very special kind of person, including precisely one elected official, one unbending politician who stood quite alone when he put his career on the line to say no, to refuse to do it. And in so doing, he changed the lives of thousands of Americans who were otherwise being betrayed by their own country.
So that's from Burn Order. My new podcast, episodes 1 through 4, are out right now. They're free to listen on any podcast app. The final 2 episodes will come out next week. Times like this, I firmly believe that history is here to help. We've got a lot to get to tonight. Stay with us.
You got the magic.
sort of the way Larry Summers was in the last release from the estate. So we wait and see what happens. But again, the Justice Department will go through a process of redacting these files before releasing them.
It is interesting because we don't normally get access to this sort of material.
No, we don't. And in fact, federal law, specifically Rule 6E, governs the use and sharing of grand jury material is what specifically protects against it. And Ken and I have had lots of discussions about to what extent was Rule 6E going to be overcome by the passage of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which, as in its plain language, doesn't have any exclusion for grand jury materials and seemed to call for the production of this. That is exactly what the judge is deciding today. The judge saying that the passage of a later, more specific enactment by Congress sort of supersedes an earlier, more general one. In other words, because Congress has decided that specific categories of documents relating to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell need to be turned over to it, it's not going to exempt from that grand jury materials, but rather decide, as DOJ had wanted, that grand jury materials could be unsealed so that it can comply with the act. That also means, Katie, this is an incentive for Congress to pass other similar legislation in the future. You know, my mind immediately went to, are we going to have the Trump Mar-a-Lago Documents Transparency Act or the Trump Federal Election Interference Investigation Transparency Act in a future Congress where Democrats want to get to the heart of what did those grand juries look at? We've certainly never seen those, but now we know from this ruling, at least from one Southern District judge, that a more specific congressional enactment can overcome the protections against grand jury disclosures.
Really interesting development. Ken, you know, we got a lot of information, a lot more information from the estate of Jeffrey Epstein. We haven't gotten as much from DOJ directly. Should we expect any more revelations from the estate?
Well, they're producing financial information, as I understand it, to that congressional investigation, and they've already produced some of it, bank records and those kinds of things. And Garcia, the ranking Democrat, has said that they are going through that and they're trying to understand Jeffrey Epstein's finances. Again, I don't think that any of this is going to live up to sort of the conspiracy theories that we see online, but it may include some interesting revelations about relationships that Epstein had that have not been exposed publicly. Katie.
All right, Lisa, can we talk about SCOTUS?
We can.
Campaign finance. Somebody said this was what they're going to be considering is like Citizens United juiced up.
I think it's an interesting way of looking at it. Look, if citizens...
Plain gray kitchen. It's a large one with a gigantic refrigerator, an oversized island, and tons of storage space. However, in this next photo, we'll see that the only pop of color in the entire room is this strange, really disturbing, given the context, photo of a naked child with some sort of a rattle bathing in a bathtub. This photo is huge, poster-sized, and it's not clear why it's placed above this diner-style table.
Your membership is more than just a card. It's your gateway to...
We can see from this video that the person who is documenting this island, who recorded some of these videos and photos, takes particular interest in this photo, zooming in on it. And I would be very interested to know if they followed up into who this child was. In the next few photos, we move outside. If you're interested in a more comprehensive overview of the different structures on this building and what I believe are inside of each of them, I would definitely recommend checking out my previous video where we tour every structure on Epstein Island and talk about some of the history of each one. Now moving indoors, we have this photo of a sleep mask and a flashlight and a box of tissues sitting on some sort of a nightstand. Moving outside, we have more photos of this main complex, which is on the northern end of the island. We see the pool and some of these smaller structures. I'm not exactly sure what purpose these structures served. They have a ton of doors on them. It's difficult to tell if they're decorative or not. We get a look at a second bedroom, and one thing that I'm kind of curious about is the way that these chairs are laid out. There's a huge rug, and then there's two chairs at the end of it, and they're facing towards the bathroom. They're not facing the bed or even towards the view, which is behind the camera in this photo. We can actually see from this photo, photo 5185, the beautiful view of the ocean that was apparently taken from a balcony outside of this bedroom. Then we move into a room that has been repurposed as some sort of a stock room. However, it appears that its original purpose was as a kind of movie theater or screening room. There's a large projection screen and a projector on the wall behind it. And the room is just loaded up with various pieces of art. We can see in this photo a kind of yellowish picture of a group of men sitting on the edge of a dock. Unfortunately, it doesn't provide a clear look at any of their faces. There's this piece, which appears to be the red and white stripes of an American flag with the words, "I am the subject," written on it, some sort of art piece maybe. In the lower right-hand corner of this photo, we can see some sort of a bust in stone. And there are many of these all across the island, as we will see in just a moment. There are these weird sort of ballerina-esque statuettes on this table here, and behind it is a large photo of the island taken from a drone, it appears. Here's a close-up of that bust. To the left of it is some sort of contraption. I'm not exactly sure what that is. If you can identify that, let me know in the comments. There's a photo of a painting of some sort of building. I'm not exactly sure which buildings this picture depicts. At first glance, it looks like it could be Jeffrey Epstein's island, but I don't think it is. More paintings. These ones look like they're in oil. I'm terrible at identifying paintings. It's not an area that I know a whole lot about, so let me know if you recognize any of these. Jeffrey Epstein, as many people are aware, was a collector of various types of art. It's how he got in touch with the Farmer girls, Annie and Maria Farmer. And throughout his life, he was a collector of statues and made several other expensive purchases of instruments and various other things, which I hope to cover in a future video. We see these glass skulls with some sort of a tribal mask and another bust in the back. And we also get another look at this famous photo of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell meeting Pope John Paul II. In the next photo, I thought it was interesting that whoever was taking these photos captured this photo of a phone cord port embedded in the wall there. It's difficult to tell which building this photo was taken in, but it is interesting that they thought that that was notable enough to take a photo of. The thing that catches your eye in this photo when you first look at it is obviously the painting. It's a woman leaning into the water, and there's a paper boat behind her. But in the foreground, you can actually see several computer monitors taken from somewhere, and there's a large sound system behind it. As we'll see in a minute, Jeffrey Epstein had an extensive surveillance network across this island, which I had not known about or seen before. Next, we have this shower room, which has a weird sort of double shower situation going on behind those glass panes. We can see lots of shampoo bottles and things. I zoomed in on those. They're mostly lotions, shampoos, conditioners, things like that. In the adjacent room, there's an oversized bathtub with two gigantic, what looks like wicker or some sort of wood chairs in front of it. Definitely a weird setup. There's a white chair situated right behind the bathtub, and actually in the corner there, you can see there's a telephone on the pedestal. I've never known anybody that has a telephone in the bathroom before. We get a zoomed in view of the telephone with various people that he has on speed dial, some of which are redacted. At the top, it says New York office. Then beneath that is Darren office and Darren cell. I can only assume that Darren is Darren Indyke, Jeffrey Epstein's personal lawyer. And Rich is probably Richard Kahn, Jeffrey Epstein's personal accountant. I don't know who Mike is. There are a couple different Mikes, one of which was Jeffrey Epstein's one-time Palm Beach house manager. You can find him in Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book, but I'm not sure that that's him. Beneath that is redacted, and beneath that is Patrick. I was similarly unable to figure out who Patrick was. That's not a name that rings any bell with me. Then there are two redacted names beneath that. And finally is Larry. Jeffrey Epstein had a friend named Larry Summers, Lawrence Summers, who was the one-time president of Harvard. I'm not sure that that's who that is, but that's probably the most notable person that he knows named Larry. The next file contains this photo of someone's hand, an oversized male hand, possibly Jeffrey Epstein's hand, holding a smaller, feminine-looking hand. This photo is of a large bedroom. It could be the master bedroom. I'm not sure. You'll notice that there's a bust, like I was talking about, on the gigantic desk to the side there. And interestingly, although there's a real possibility that this is the master bedroom and thus Jeffrey Epstein's bedroom, there is only one photo of it. We have some outdoor photos. These ones are taken from the northernmost edge of the island, looking out towards what is called the St. James Cut, which is between Little St. James and the nearest island. Then we move into a room that is almost certainly Jeffrey Epstein's personal study. It's a very ornate room. It's got intricately carved wood, pillars, and lots of different things to analyze. So there's this odd little statuette of what looks like a monkey holding maybe a palm frond, waving it around. Behind it is a book about a man named Tony Duquette, which is named More is More. He's a designer. I'm not exactly sure if Jeffrey Epstein just admired his work or if there was some sort of personal connection. Then we have what look like canes, but could be, some sort of rod, decorative rod or something like that, with different animal heads on them. It looks like a wolf and a horse, among others. There's a lot to analyze in this one. This is a photo of Jeffrey Epstein's chalkboard. In front of it, obviously, we have all these busts that I've been talking about, but on the chalkboard, there are various written words that are difficult to discern. There's, on the left-hand side, we have the words fin and phi, probably finance and physics, two of Jeffrey Epstein's interests. Beneath that is intellectual and political. Then we have power, deception. Beneath that looks like mirror and face. Above that is a word that's a little bit hard for me to read. It looks like plants from a distance, but up close it doesn't look like the letters A and N. Maybe plots, something like that. Let me know what you think about that. Next to that it says appears with an exclamation point. Music, time, -day. If I'm not mistaken, some of these photos were previously released by a man named James O'Keefe, who's an investigative journalist, and he put out a call for an analysis of some of these writings, but to my knowledge, there's nothing that has really come back about the significance of these words. However, there is some significance. They redacted some of these words for a reason. It's just not quite clear what it is. Continuing in the theme of artworks, if you can call this that, there's a woman who appears to be urinating, and there are some books behind her, most of them having to do with architecture, business, and art. There are a bunch of different busts, one of which is William Shakespeare, I believe, and the rest I could not identify. What I can identify is outside there are these weathered statues of Neptune and Poseidon. Neptune was not only the god of the seas, but also the patron of horse racing, which is an interesting little tidbit, and that's why they have those horse legs and hoofs. More photos of the outside. You'll notice in some of these photos that there are various caps and structures that allude to underground utilities like water or electricity. I'd be interested to hear an engineer's opinion on some of these structures and what exactly they could hint at beneath, what kind of infrastructure Jeffrey Epstein had on this island.
Honestly, I had almost given up. Alone at 55, and everyone I know has been married for years. Came across Lana Date and figured, why not?
And then we're back inside, and this is a weird one. This appears to be a dentist's office. Jeffrey Epstein's last girlfriend before he died was a woman named Karina Shuliak. She's still out there, and Jeffrey Epstein reportedly put her through dental school. In these photos, we can obviously see the large dentist chair, but we can also see various types of dentistry equipment, such as sterilization tools. And of course, the weirdest thing about this room, which is entirely unrelated to dentistry, the smattering of masks across almost every wall and even on some of the countertops. I have no idea who these masks are intended to represent, but they're certainly unnerving to look at, and we can even see in this photo that one of them is painted like a clown. Outside again, this is the northernmost patio, which I talked about earlier. We can see these huge shell mosaics which are encased in the concrete, and between them is a large oversized E. We have seen this statue before. It's a gigantic statue of a muscular man aiming a bow, and it seems that no one on the internet knows what the significance of this sculpture was to Jeffrey Epstein. However, it was significant to him. He had a similar, or rather identical, but shrunken down version of this statue in his Palm Beach mansion with a blindfold around its eyes. We have plenty more photos of the outside of this main housing complex. Moving on, we see a bunch of photos of these gigantic stone walls and a pathway leading down to further south on the island. We can see in the distance in this photo 5379 the group of buildings which housed large industrial equipment. He had several pieces of construction machinery that were used around the island. Moving back up the pathway, we see two boats. One is named Little C. I'm not sure what the significance of that name is. And on the shoreline here, he has a sign, which is one of two different signs, warning against trespassing. It says, warning, attack dogs on premises, no trespassing. As far as I know, that was not necessarily true. There are a couple of photos of what look like Labrador retrievers on the island when Peter Mandelson, who is a British politician, came to visit. In fact, Peter Mandelson made a special note in his entry in Jeffrey Epstein's birthday book to say that Epstein was not a fan of dogs, which is just another evidence that he was not a good person. On the other side of this sign is a sticker that says that everyone that steps foot on the island is being recorded, which is true, and we'll see in a moment. We see in this photo a sort of outdoor amphitheater seating area. I don't know what this area was used for. It's very strange, as the view is obstructed by palm trees, and I'm not sure what purpose it would have served. This cabana building housed several massage tables, which we've seen in previous photos, but I haven't seen this gigantic statue, sort of an island style, I would say, toppled on its side there in front of the cabana. There's another pool in this photo, and I believe that the next photo was taken inside of that little beach house. We can see a computer monitor with several feeds, 16 feeds to be specific, although only 3 are currently active. We can see the timestamp in the lower right-hand corner of this computer says around noon time on October 2nd, 2020, which was over a year after Jeffrey Epstein died in prison. These photos aren't annotated, so I feel a little bit weird about saying conclusively where they're located. However, they do seem to be in almost chronological order, so I believe that this next photo was taken inside of that pool house. There's a large bathroom with an oversized shower. Jeffrey Epstein apparently was a fan of huge showers. He has them in almost every house that he has. And there's also a small kitchenette area. If you've been following Jeffrey Epstein for any length of time, you are no doubt familiar with the Temple building. Despite its name, it hasn't been exactly clear what purpose it served, and we've never seen anything other than a photo that was blurry and taken outside of the window. However, I believe that these next photos are of exactly that. It's a small building, maybe 10 to 15 feet on the one side and 15 to 20, 25 feet on the other. It's got a large bookshelf on the one wall, reaching all the way to the ceiling, and a very ornate painting just above it. The painting, if we zoom in, appears to depict the different constellations, with paintings over top them representing what the constellation is named after. As far as I know, these are the only 2 public photos of this building, and I'm fairly certain that they belong to the temple because of this piece of equipment here, which I imagine was probably used to do work on the ceiling. I'm in on the left-hand side. It's almost hidden within this kind of mosaic style marble. There's all kinds of wires pouring out of the back, and they appear to have been doing work on the floor before that work was interrupted. I wish that there were more photos of that building, but unfortunately, those are the only 2. It's been years people have been speculating about that building, so it's almost surreal to possibly see the inside of it. The next page is a photo of a similar no trespassing sign, and the one following that is more photos from the previous double bathroom, which we talked about earlier.
My energy bill dropped from $150 to $50 by doing this.
Decorations stuffed inside those boxes. And after that are several videos of the state of the island, kind of walking around it from different vantage points, taking simplistic videos. There's not too much here, but it's very weird and surreal to see this island from ground level when you've done so much research and reading about it. We have more videos of the inside of that kitchen that we started off with. It's really just a drab color scheme, and to be honest, it's out of character for Jeffrey Epstein. He seemed to have preferred gaudy, ornate. Many people in my comments have referred to his style of interior decorating as tacky, and this is sort of a turnaround from him. It's very simplistic, and as I said at the beginning, kind of darkly puts the emphasis on that photo of the child on the wall there. Well, that about does it. We've gone through several hundred photos and videos in what I hope was a man
and forensic psychologist, as well as a body language expert. But today, we're not going to be analyzing body language. Today, we're going to be doing a forensic analysis of Epstein Island. Before we get started with this, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a formal psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. A new batch of Epstein Files was released, and it's about 200 pictures as well as some videos. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to go through and analyze all of these pictures. I'm going to talk about it from a forensic psychological perspective. As a forensic psychologist, any data I can gather helps me build a psychological profile. So what we're going to be doing today is looking at these pictures and seeing what it tells us about Jeffrey Epstein. All right, let's just jump right in. So we're starting with just a couple of pictures of the island itself. Something I want you to be thinking about is that anything that we do in our environment, any way that we design our house, any choices that we make, the things that we like to surround ourselves with, that is a representation of our internal world. So I want you to think about the psychology of even owning an island. It's a closed system. You get to make your own universe. It's almost like a physical manifestation of the idea that I answer to no one. Some people seek isolation to recharge, and some people seek it to dominate. So you have to think about the fact that having this island is likely secretive. It's a way to maintain full control. I mean, think about the fact he's in full control of who comes, who leaves, what they see, what they do. This is an area where he's going to have absolute control. This is all going to tie into once we start actually looking at the inside of the houses on the island. But let's keep going. Now, in a little bit, we're going to get to some pretty strange stuff. This room with masks and a dental chair and all this. But we're going to start with this kitchen right here. Very sterile, very cold, completely absent of warmth. A room like this feels devoid of authentic attachment. We're going to be talking a lot about relationships and attachment as we go through this, but this doesn't feel like it's attached to anybody. Like I said, there's no warmth. It's a workspace. It doesn't feel like a home. Now, when we go back outside, it's somewhat less remarkable. It does give you an idea of just how isolated you really are on this island, which may be exactly what he was looking for. Maybe he wanted to be away from people. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But when you combine that with all the other psychological variables we're looking at, it starts to become an area where he has complete control. Now, as we go back inside again, one of the really interesting things about Jeffrey Epstein is he's someone that he clearly has a lot of money. He had planes, he's got his own island, no shortage of money, but the insides don't feel luxurious. Everything feels segmented, separated, compartmentalized, controlled. It doesn't have a degree of comfort and warmth to it like you might expect. Something I talked about in another video where I analyzed his New York apartment is that he was a notoriously bad host. He did not know how to host people. He did not know how to throw parties. He threw parties, he had people over, but he wasn't a good host. He didn't know how to serve food. He had to be taught that by Woody Allen's wife. Now, to me, this is one of the most interesting and certainly the strangest room that we get to look at from Epstein Island. Now, in the middle here is a dental chair. Now, reports have suggested that he had a girlfriend that was a dentist or a dentist in training, but it's such a strange place to have a dental chair. So we've got a dental chair surrounded by these masks. Let's talk about the masks first, and then we're going to get into some of the symbolism of the masks and what they mean. Now, the interesting thing is who the masks are. Now, we're going to get some close-ups, and they'll sort of explain who everybody is here, at least as many people as I can identify. This is Oliver Hardy on the left, Stan Laurel on the right. So for anybody familiar with the old duo, Laurel and Hardy, looks like that's who these are masks of. It also looks like he has world leaders. The one on the right, to me, looks like Vladimir Lenin. The one on the left is maybe an old Charles de Gaulle. It could be somebody else. But it's so far we've got actors and world leaders. I can't guarantee you that I'm right about who that is on the left. And then another wall has Humphrey Bogart, and it looks like Joseph Stalin on the right. I'm pretty sure that's who that's supposed to be. These are not the most skilled and detailed masks, so it's a little bit hard to tell. This one right here, this one I'm having a hard time with. The mustache doesn't quite look right for Hitler, nor does the hair, but maybe Hitler or Charlie Chaplin, somebody. I'm having a harder time identifying specifically who this is supposed to be. Now, these I'm a little confused by. The one on the right's probably Buster Keaton, although it doesn't look entirely like him, but I can't think of anybody else who would fit that. But the one on the left, the one on the bottom left, I have no idea who that's supposed to be. So if anybody knows, if anybody has any idea, please let me know in the comments below, because I'm admittedly very curious. But then when we go up a little bit more, if we look towards the right side, that one's clearly supposed to be Mussolini. So what we have here is a collection of masks of entertainers, performers, world leaders. It exactly reflects the kinds of people that Jeffrey Epstein likes to collect himself. He likes being around influential people, rich people, performers. This is exactly the constellation, obviously different people, because this would have been a different generation, but exactly the constellation of the types of people that he actually wants to be around. So being in a room surrounded by faces that are looking at you in the middle of with a dental chair in the middle is an incredibly strange choice. But thematically, having all of these masks with the eyes cut out can suggest paranoia. It can suggest voyeurism. It can suggest some kind of internalized audience. The room feels almost ritualistic. I know I don't think in a literal sense that this is some kind of ritual, but it almost gives the feel of one. But I think these masks also very much represent how Jeffrey Epstein probably saw the world. He saw people in roles. He saw people as wearing masks. Because if you are a nice narcissist or a psychopath or somebody with a role like that, you are playing a role. You are trying to convince other people that you're fitting in. You're trying to not let people see how strange you really are. So Jeffrey Epstein may have seen other people as playing roles. He may have believed everybody was playing a role because he very much himself may have been playing a role. He may have thought everybody else keeps a mask on because I do. And that very much is not the way that the vast majority of the world lives. But to me, the idea of having this dental chair in the middle of all these masks, this is a power fantasy. And with these masks, for him, identity may seem like a facade. It may seem like a role rather than reality. He may not see people's personalities as reality. He truly may see them as people that are playing roles. And maybe for some of the people he interacted with, that may have been true. May have been true for himself. But like I said, that's not really true for the vast majority of people. Have you ever Googled your own name or email address? Before I had Aura, I did, and wow. It was my full name, about the vulnerability that comes with dentistry. So to surround somebody with all of these symbols, when you're in a very vulnerable position, laying back with your mouth open, almost restrained in a sense, it is a really strange psychological dynamic that goes back to suggest that he just does not understand people that well. He certainly wouldn't put these things up assuming that other people would enjoy them, I wouldn't think. He's not trying to impress anybody by keeping these up. I think that these would have to be for himself and himself only. It's interesting that he would have decorations like this because he seems sort of obsessed with surrounding himself with young women, but this is most definitely not something that young people are going to be impressed by or identify with or enjoy in any way, shape, or form. So it goes back to show that detachment that he has a hard time understanding attachment, I think. And he probably doesn't really care what other people like. Like this chair, for example. This small chair is not exactly something that looks particularly comfortable, and if this is a guest room, he's not going out of his way to have a nice, luxurious area for his guests. Obviously, it's nice, but the idea is that it's not built for comfort. As we continue to go through this, everything just continues to feel so sterile. So we look at these colored pencils, for example. It doesn't look like they're particularly used. They're more there as props, like a lot of things in his house. His house is full of objects, not things that people are attached to. Now, this picture is interesting to me because something that we see elsewhere, and we're going to get more into later on, is that many of his pictures, at least the ones with him in it, or with famous people or with powerful people, with celebrities or with world leaders, those kinds of things, where I assume this is a picture that was taken on a trip that he was on, although I'm not sure of that, but he's not in it, and it doesn't actually include people's faces. And so, once again, it's almost impersonal. Yes, it may be personal in the sense that those are people that he met or people that he interacted with, but there's nothing specifically personal about these pictures. It doesn't even show who they are. And I would expect that from someone who doesn't value relationships in a real way or who doesn't understand relationships. So here's more of his strange art. I am the subject. I don't know if this was gifted to him or something that he chose, but the idea of it saying, I am the subject, very self-centered. I also think it's interesting he has a picture of his own island right here. So something else we know about Jeffrey Epstein is that he really got excited by art, by artists, by professors, by people that are intellectuals. And he has a lot of items like this, like busts of famous composers, authors, those kinds of things. One thing you're going to notice is the vast majority of art in his home is either of women or of buildings or islands. You really don't see a lot of men in his artwork. Like this picture right here is a woman who looks like she might be undressing or something like that. The picture on the left, it looks like the person may not be wearing any clothes. And I'd be very curious if he's connected to this art, because if you look at his apartment in New York, some of the art there was very strange. I don't know if any of this was actually hung up in his home or if it was just set aside like we're seeing it right now. He also tends to have artifacts like this, so that it looks like there's some African artifacts. I don't really know what the crystal skulls are, but I'd be very curious if he actually felt anything associated with these art pieces. Now, if we look right here, these little figures that he has set up, now these are things that you can pose to help you sketch, basically. You don't typically need 6 of them, so it's interesting if he may just have those purely as some sort of weird aesthetic choice because he likes to appear as someone who's worldly, who's interested in art and all of these things. But this in and of itself is actually quite peculiar because everything looks so empty. So not surprisingly, here's another piece that's centered around scantily clad women. So here's a picture of Jeffrey Epstein with Pope John Paul II. This is very representative of the types of pictures that he had in his place in New York, as well as in his house here. And what I mean by that is that he oftentimes has pictures with famous people, with rich people, with powerful people, world leaders, celebrities, moguls, all sorts of different people. But the interesting thing is it seems like the majority of his pictures is him showing off who he knows. It's not him having fun. It's not him on vacation. It's him meeting famous and influential people. So it goes to show, once again, his attachments to people may be pretty weak. He may have defined himself by the powerful people he knew or got to meet. Because most people, if they're going to meet somebody famous, might have a picture or two with that person. But it seems like almost all of his pictures are like that. Now, to me, this right here is very interesting, but it's actually not the art piece. What's interesting to me is this stereo system that's in a box right in front of that picture. Now, what this is this is the Nakamichi Shockwave. It's called Nakamichi Shockwave 7.2. What that means is it's 7 speakers and 2 subwoofers. Now, the reason that matters, the reason I'm explaining all of this, is because this is not a luxurious stereo system. It's nice, but it's not the kind of thing a billionaire or a multimillionaire would own. Typically, people with this kind of money are going to set up something that's a little bit more luxurious. This is sort of an out-of-the-box solution. It probably cost maybe $1,000 or something like that, so it's not cheap, but it's not the kind of thing you would expect a millionaire or a billionaire to own. So there are a couple of things this may suggest. One, it could be that he doesn't want people coming to the island that are specialists. He may want to limit the island to only people that he truly trusts or people that he believes he can control in some way. So hiring somebody to come and set up a stereo system might be a vulnerability for him. So he bought something that you can just open out of the box and it's already set up. Or it could be this, that he's cheap. For him, maybe spending's associated with vulnerability. He may have an emotional detachment from material objects. Comfort or entertaining others may not matter that much to him because maybe this was something he bought for a room that he didn't stay in. But just the idea that he would have such a non-luxury item in a house like this when he owns airplanes and he has so much power and control and money, I just think is very interesting and it's very unusual. Now here's a shower area, and I'm not sure whether or not these are all his items or if any of them, maybe they're somebody else's, but it's all basic things. Dial soap, Aveeno, all of these sort of non-luxury items, the exact same kind of thing you would see in anybody's shower. Now, here's a phone that was in one of his rooms. It has obviously these names on the side. There's some names that are redacted. I wouldn't think too much about the names that are redacted. These were probably very functional people that could clean or massage or whatever it is. I wouldn't think that these were the people that were on speed dial like politicians or famous people or anything like that. So I think the redactions are probably women that worked for him. Once again, when you see rooms like this, they just feel so empty. They feel so barren and so minimalistic without feeling luxurious. Now this, I wish we could see the whole picture because I can't tell what these are. They look like canes almost. Look like something out of Eyes Wide Shut or something like that. But they very well could be fireplace pokers or something to that effect. We can't see the other half of it, so I can't say fully what they are. So here's a blackboard with some words written on it, and I think that this is really fascinating. I think it tells us a lot about Jeffrey Epstein. So to me, this almost looks pseudo-intellectual. It looks like some sort of trying to look smart, some sort of fake intelligence. You've got power, deception, intellectual, appear, music, time, day. These words are there almost like he's trying to appear smart, like he's trying to be the genius or the enlightened thinker. There's nothing about this that's impressive, but I do wonder if he writes these things down just to make himself feel important. So when I see things like this, it feels a little ridiculous, honestly. Once again, when we look at some of the items that he has around the house, as far as I can tell, and I'm no art expert, but these look like they're just plaster statues. These are not some sort of expensive worldly statues that he collected. These just look like decorations, which I just find very interesting because, once again, I don't think he has much of a connection to a lot of the decorations around his house. I don't think he feels much about these. They're just there to fill space. Outdoors, he has a big E here. Not shocking considering that this is his island. I'm not, that seems pretty typical with the kind of grandiosity that comes with owning an island. Now, here's a shot of some of these security cameras. Now, this doesn't stand out as particularly remarkable because if he had hidden cameras, very likely they would not have been monitored on something like this. But it also shows that it was wired for that type of technology. I want you to think about what it would be like to go somewhere like this. When you get there, obviously it's a beautiful island. It would probably be very impressive. But the longer you stay there, when you're indoors, it's all going to feel very lonely and impersonal and isolated. There's not really an ounce of warmth in this whole place. And so I can imagine that if you were a guest there, it would probably be impressive at first, but become very unpleasant after a while, or feel very isolating after a while. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. Hopefully this is helping you better understand some of
Hader, who's the daughter of my two daughters, Alexandra and Rose. And yes, we married in 1992. And yeah, we were married for about 2.5 years or so, and didn't work out. We divorced. We had Ali at that point, and she went off and she married another man, and she was married to him for 3 years. And then she left him, and then we met up again and we remarried. Who's the daughter of my two daughters, Alexandra and Rose. Time I married Hader, who's the daughter of my two daughters, Alexandra. I married Hader, who's the daughter of my two daughters, Alexandra and Rose. I married Hader, who's the daughter of my two daughters, Alexandra and Rose. And yes, we married in 1992. And yeah, we were married for about 2.5 years or so, and didn't work out. We divorced. We had Ali at that point, and she went off and she married another man, and she was married to him for 3 years. And then she left him. And
there's a 42-year age difference between the two.
This is right. They say age is only a number. I don't know. They say I don't look 78. Anyway, I think I look 108.
Well, and a lot of people, they have a problem with this because when she was 4 years old, you were her stepfather, and then you go on to have children with her.
Well, yes, you know, I was her stepfather, but she had 3 stepfathers afterwards. You know, so I was a one-time stepfather. She had 3 stepfathers subsequently. So, you know, I'm not the current. But I mean, you know, all I say is show me the rules. I'd like to see the rules. Please show me the rules. I want to see the rules for love and war. Rules. I'd like to see the rules. Please show me the rules.
Who's the daughter of my two daughters, Alexandra and Rose. And yes, we married in 1992. And yeah, we were married for about 2.5 years or so, and didn't work out. We divorced. We had Ali at that point, and she went off and she married another man, and she was married to him for 3 years. And then she left him, and then we met up again and we remarried. Who's the daughter of my two daughters, Alexandra and Rose. Time I married Hader, who's the daughter of my two daughters, Alexandra. I married Hader, who's the daughter of my two daughters, Alexandra.
Back-to-back gestures that people are saying mimicked a Nazi salute. You see it there. Elon Musk has not directly addressed this, but he has appeared to edit out that gesture from the video that he posted on X, the platform he, of course, owns. Help us understand what transpired.
Thank you.
Oh, careful with that salute.
It wasn't even like a subtle, like a wave, like one of these, like a.
It's okay. It's good to be proud of German culture, German values, and not to lose that in some sort of multiculturalism that dilutes everything.
That's what a Nazi would say.
We don't want Italy as a culture to disappear. We don't want France as a culture to disappear. I think we have to have maintain the sort of reasonable cultural identity of the various countries, or they simply will not be those countries.
Aber der ist wahrscheinlich für Sie auch Nazi. Nazis, 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 lauter Nazis.
USA, 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 USA.
Yes. No, dog. No, this is the Charlie Chaplin mustache.
Coast to coast in the U.S. for so-called Tesla takedowns, outraged by Elon Musk and Doge's massive cuts to the federal workforce. It comes as the electric car maker is facing acts of vandalism and other crimes. Here's ABC's Morgan Norwood.
Tonight, from New York to Washington to Los Angeles to San Francisco and even abroad, Tesla Takedown, a global day of peaceful action demanding an end to Elon Musk's influence over Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, and its sweeping federal cuts.
We're going to put pressure on the administration, but also on Congress to stand up to them.
Organizers claim Musk's Tesla fortune helped him secure a role in the Trump administration, overseeing Doge and slashing government funding.
We don't think that Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, should be in charge of doing things like that.
Protesters are urging boycotts, calling on Tesla owners to sell their EVs and dump their stocks. While today's protests remain peaceful, recent weeks have been anything but. The FBI launching a task force in response to earlier attacks, including incendiary devices found at a Tesla dealership in Austin, Texas. And in New York, investigators looking for two people who they say carved the word Nazis and a swastika into a Cybertruck. Musk on Fox News warning the Trump administration.
What was left of the wreckage of that small boat killed them, bringing the total death count from that 2-missile strike on that little boat to 11. The firing of the second missile has been described as, quote, just murder, end quote, by NYU law professor Ryan Goodman, who is also a former Pentagon lawyer. Last week, Donald Trump said, quote, whatever they have, we'd certainly release, no problem. Those were his exact words about the video of the second missile strike that killed those two people clinging to the wreckage. The missile strike that Ryan Goodman says is just murder. And when presented with his exact words today, the first words out of Donald Trump's mouth were, I didn't say that. And of course, he was lying. That was pathological liar Donald Trump, who the Washington Post recorded telling 30,573 lies during his first presidency, lying once again, this time to Rachel Scott of ABC News. And America is lucky tonight that Rachel Scott is in the White House press corps. Last year, she won an award from the Washington Association of Black Journalists, and of course, Donald Trump hates her and lies about her, as he did today.
Mr. President, you said that you would have Mr. President, you said you would have no problem with releasing the full video of that strike on September 2nd off the coast of Venezuela. Secretary Hegseth now says.
You said that. I didn't say that. This is ABC fake news.
You said that you would have no problem releasing the full bit. Okay, well, Secretary Hegseth.
No, whatever Hegseth wants to do is okay with me.
That's how you do it. That's how every reporter should do it with Donald Trump. Donald Trump said to Rachel Scott, I didn't say that. You said that. I didn't say that. This is ABC fake news. To which Rachel Scott said, you said that. You said that you would have no problem releasing the full video. And that's how you do it. You don't let him get away with his lie. And what did Donald Trump do when Rachel Scott did not let him get away with his lie? He gave up. He just had one round of lying in him. He gave up. And he changed his story to, whatever Hegseth wants to do is okay with me. He changed his story to that. But Rachel Scott wasn't finished.
He now says it's under review. Are you ordering the secretary to release that full video? Would you
Whatever
like to
he
see that
decides
there?
is okay with me.
So that's the new Trump story. It's not totally up to Pete Hegseth. We know that's a lie. We know that nothing is up to Pete Hegseth. We know that Donald Trump will order Pete Hegseth to release the video, or Donald Trump will order Pete Hegseth, as he obviously is now ordering him, to not release the video, because Donald Trump believes the video looks like murder. That's the reason not to release it. And that would be the only reason Donald Trump would not allow the release of that video. That's it. That's the only reason. Donald Trump wants us to see all his other videos of killing people in those boats, but not this one, because he thinks whatever it is just too bad for us to see. Rachel Scott still wasn't finished. And Rachel Scott knows who is really in control of that video.
Are you committing to releasing the full video?
Didn't I just tell you that?
You said that it was up to Secretary
You're the
Hegseth.
most obnoxious reporter in the whole place. Let me just tell you, you are an obnoxious, actually a terrible reporter, and it's always the same thing with you. I told you, whatever Pete Hegseth wants to do is okay with me.
If you are a member of the White House press corps and Donald Trump has not told you that you are a terrible reporter, then you are not doing your job. If you are a member of the White House press corps and Donald Trump has not told you you are the most obnoxious reporter in the whole place, then you are not doing your job. You are failing. Last Thursday on this program, Senator Mark Warner told us that he believed that the two men were incapacitated when they were killed by the second missile. Senator Warner is one of the members of Congress who has actually seen the video. Reporters have been piecing together accounts of what is on that video from different people who have seen the video and other sources, and some of those accounts indicate the military justification for killing those two people, who Senator Warner says were incapacitated, is that they could have been trying to signal drug traffickers to rescue them. The New York Times reports there were no other unknown aircraft or boats in visual range, according to officials who attended classified sessions on Thursday in which military officers briefed lawmakers. The military officers said the survivors could have been trying to beckon to other alleged drug traffickers in a plane or boat to come get them, communications that could have justified the follow-up strike that killed them. First of all, no plane could come get them in the middle of the ocean. Second, the military knows exactly what other aircraft were within miles of that airspace at that time. They didn't have to rely about what could be seen by the human eye. The military knows exactly what vessels were in sight of the attack the entire time. Even recreational small boats have radar that is good enough to tell them every single thing that is floating in the water for miles around them. And military radar for water surface and for aircraft is beyond anything in possession of the private sector. If the military could claim tonight that there was a single floating anything within miles of that attack, they would claim it, and they would have the evidence to claim it, including radar evidence. The military would not leave Admiral Frank Bradley out there without the protection of the evidence that they collected as a reason to kill those two men, to order the killing of those two men, as Admiral Bradley says he did. It's not guesswork about whether there was some aircraft that they could have signaled that was not an American military aircraft. What kind of aircraft are they imagining that could have gone out there in the middle of the ocean to save those two people clinging to the wreckage? The only aircraft that can do that is a Coast Guard helicopter. So unless the military comes forward and says, here's our proof of other boats within range that could have come and picked up those two men, no one should believe that was in any way possible. If it was possible, they have tracking evidence showing exactly what that vessel was that was in range of those two men. And if there are other boats anywhere in that ocean that they suspected might go pick up those men, Why wouldn't they have sent a missile down at that boat that they suspect of doing that? They don't need much provocation to send these missiles down there. The military cover-up that is going on right now depends on people not thinking. It depends on people knowing nothing about boats on the ocean, knowing nothing about radar, knowing nothing about military technology in a situation like this. The military cover-up that is going on right now depends on people having no idea where those boats are at sea, thousands of miles away from the United States, without the fuel capacity or the engine capacity to get there. These are outboard motors on these boats. And they're supposed to be filled with drugs, so they can't be filled with fuel. Boats that size would have to be filled with fuel, and they still wouldn't be able to make it all the way to the United States. So they would have to have transit points in the islands, in the chain of islands, all the way up the Caribbean. Why wouldn't you find those transit points and grab them there? Why wouldn't you choke off those transit points? Donald Trump's claims that those drugs were headed for America depend on people knowing absolutely nothing about the capacity of those small outboard engine vessels, small boats that do not have that kind of range. And they can't make it from the Southern Caribbean or from the Pacific in some instances. They can't make it up to this country. And the only reason this kind of speculation is going on in the news media about what those men might or might not have been doing as they were about to drown is that Donald Trump is hiding the video. Donald Trump has shown you videos of plenty of attacks the American military has launched against defenseless small boats, none of which were actually headed to the United States at that time. Donald Trump has shown us videos of Pete Hegseth and him killing people in the Caribbean. But they have one video of one missile of them killing just 2 people that they absolutely do not want us to see. And that is a cover-up by their own terms of this public engagement. Because in the Trump-Hegseth terms of this public engagement, this kind of killing in the Caribbean will be televised. They want us to see it. They want us to be as bloodthirsty as they are. They want us to enjoy it the way they enjoy it. They so obviously enjoy it. And for Donald Trump, the more people he can kill in the Caribbean, the more attention he can divert from the Epstein Files. But he doesn't want to divert attention, apparently, with that one video of the killing of those 2 men. But every other video of them killing everyone else in the Caribbean, that's okay. The more attention he can divert from what's happening to the cost of living in America, and especially the cost of health insurance, that's what these videos are about for him. That's what they have been about for him. Health insurance that is going to skyrocket out of reach for people who depend on tax credits in the Affordable Care Act. Today, Donald Trump revealed once again that there is no Trump health care plan and there is no Republican plan.
On healthcare, Mr. President, 22 million Americans are expected to see their healthcare insurance premiums start to rise by the beginning of next year.
You're talking about because Obamacare is so bad?
Yes, well, sure, because the Obamacare subsidies are expiring. Are you going to do anything?
Because Obamacare is so bad.
What is the Republican plan? Are you going to let that happen on your watch?
What I'm going to do is, if the Democrats go along with it, which they don't want to because they want to make the insurance companies very rich, okay? I want the money to be paid to the people to go out and buy their own health care instead of paying to the insurance companies, their stock has gone up 1,700% in a short period of time.
Leading off our discussion tonight is Democratic Senator John Ossoff of Georgia. He's a member of the Intelligence, Appropriations, and Rules Committees. Senator, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Georgians now are facing an increased cost in health care exclusively because of Donald Trump's choice to not extend these tax credits. What are Georgians telling you about what they need from Washington now?
Good evening, Lawrence, and thank you for having me. And let's just think about this in terms of the real human impact. Let me tell you a story I heard from a constituent this week. She's in her early 60s. She waits tables for a living, and she has breast cancer. She's in the middle of chemotherapy. She needs chemo
ball on the ground. But that's the last thing they could do.
These Eagles had 3 Pro Bowlers on their offensive line last year. Juergens, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson. They're without 2 of them right now. Hurts throws. He's got A.J. Brown. Good start for the Eagles. Big play to start this possession as he gets 26.
Well, it's a good concept. They're going to clear out on the outside, and then they got A.J. Brown in that intermediate area. This is that layered route, and then they got a man in the flat. But this is the best throw that Jalen Hurts threw tonight. He had to lay that ball, and he lays it perfectly into the hands of A.J. Brown.
Juergens snaps it. Hurts trying to get small, and now out to his left to the sideline for Goddard, incomplete. Let's send it down to Lisa.
Yeah, Joe, you mentioned it, that the Eagles' offensive line is already without left tackle Lane Johnson, and now left guard Landon Dickerson is questionable with a calf injury. Dickerson went down late in the second quarter. He limped back to the locker room right before halftime. He didn't come back to the field with the rest of the team immediately, took a little extra time. He is now back on the bench, but again, questionable to return.
Yeah, he and Cam Juergens have been dealing with injuries on and off over the first 13 weeks, and here we are. They're without Dickerson at the moment. Lane Johnson, their Hall of Fame right tackle, is out with a foot injury. Barkley spins out of a tackle. Tart couldn't bring him down, but a loss on the play. A loss of 5, and after that big completion to A.J. Brown, the Eagles aren't doing anything with it.
Well, Cam Juergens, he's not able to make the block here on Tier Tart. As you mentioned, Tart doesn't make the play, but the play's essentially over at this point, and Barkley's just trying to make something happen. Now, the first down play is what messed this thing up. Was Hurts gets out of the pocket, but he had A.J. Brown over the middle of the ball, and he just put it on him. And we showed something similar earlier in this game. When your first read isn't there, your second read's not there, just check it down, and they would have had a positive play and been ahead of the chains. And now, after that run, 3rd and long.
3rd down and 15. They get some of it back with A.J. Brown, but it's 4th down.
Yeah, they're just trying to get into field goal range where they're more comfortable, and you know that's why you throw the slant. I mean, it wasn't going to pick up a first down for you.
It'll be a 53-yard try by Elliott, who's 2 for 3 tonight, missed from 48 before the half. Now they move it back, and it's officially a 54-yard try, well within the range of Jake Elliott. Good snap, good hold. The kick is good. And we're back to a 4-point game. On a nice December night in Los Angeles, where the Chargers lead by 4.
Just been really distant lately. Maybe he's scared of commitment or getting hurt. What do you think?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, Bridgewater, you're in.
Teddy Bridgewater, backup listener.
If only there were backups in real life.
Go.
So we've been
But at least there's Progressive to protect your home and auto.
different person.
You think he's scared of commitment?
Exactly.
You're not a mechanic. It's not your job to fix him.
NFC East, nothing like it. All I need is discipline and focus.
It's the NFL. I'm playing against the best.
Let's go!
I miss when HR used to feel the squeeze of bad software.
have Super Bowl 60 on February 8th at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California, then it will be our honor at ESPN and ABC to bring you Super Bowl 61 on Valentine's Day 2027 from right here at SoFi in Inglewood. And the other one we know will be Super Bowl 62, February of 2028 in Atlanta.
So you're going to be my date on Valentine's Day.
It's looking that way. Yes. Carries Vidal up to the 25, a 16-yard return. We'll be honored to be here in this great stadium that is in its 6th year. Have you seen the script? Do you know who's going to play in that one yet? I saw it.
No.
No. I'll let you know later.
Okay.
3 minutes, 15 seconds left in quarter number 3. Vidal in the backfield. They fake the handoff to him. Herbert scrambling around again and gets hit from behind. Ball is out, and it's recovered by the Chargers. Jalix Hunt was there for Philadelphia, and Scott Matlock, their fullback, gets on top of it.
Oh, man, it's a big hit to begin with, but for Madlock to be there and recover this was the ball's been on the ground a lot tonight by both teams. It's not what you want to see from your quarterback if you're Jim Harbaugh over there on the Chargers sidelines, but great hustle by Matlock in not giving the Eagles a short field. You see the grimace there by Justin Herbert. He has been hit a lot tonight, and he's had to run a lot more than I really thought that he might.
Turns into a 5-yard pickup. There have been 5 total fumbles in the game. Flag flies as Vidal has a big play off the left side, but it looks like it's coming back, and it is.
Holding. Offense number 89. That's a 10-yard penalty. 2nd down.
That's Will Dissly, the tight end.
Well, we saw him grimacing, Justin Herbert that is. This time he comes back. This is how he was handing the ball off last week, with his right hand even when the back's to his right. Normally you would hand that off to your left. He did this throughout the second half against the Raiders last week. We haven't seen this tonight, but after he took that hit, yeah, he was grabbing his hand after he got banged up, and based on the fact that he handed off differently this time than I've seen tonight, it got re-aggravated.
He had surgery on Monday, a week ago. Been dealing with swelling, and there's obviously a wound on that hand as they put a plate and screws in there. He's in trouble, and down he goes. Zach Bond, the first there. Byron Young there as well, and Jordan Davis. And Vic Fangio's got his defense revved up now.
He really does. We've seen Nakobe Dean come on the blitz a few times. This time they bring Zach Bond. And once again, the rookie, Omarion Hampton, is the one who's being asked to block him. It's just an open gate on Justin Herbert, but he had time. He knows the blitz is coming, but the secondary did not give him anywhere to go with the football. Really solid coverage along with the pass rush.
And a loss of 9, 3rd and 22. They will just hand off to Vidal and punt. Nolan Smith made the stop, and for this defense that came in, the #1 defense last year, ranked 25th in 2025. They've really come on tonight.
Yes, they have. It's funny you bring up #1, Joe. The last time they were #1 in defense before last year was in 1991, and I know that group all too well because I played against them. #1 against the run, #1 against the pass. I could name the roster for you on the defensive side of the ball, but that's how good this group was last year. And this looks a lot like the Green Bay game we had a few weeks ago. Just the defense keeping them in it.
Fair catch by Covey. Do you want to name some of those guys?
Yeah, Reggie White, Seth Joyner, Clyde Simmons, Jerome Brown, Eric Allen, Byron Evans, Muddy Waters. Who else you want?
They used to meet at #8 for the Cowboys. Eagles ball.
You at McDonald's, you'll get more than you expect for breakfast. Like buy a sausage burrito and add a sausage McMuffin for $1. Because a late-night double shift deserves an early morning deal. Get more than you expect with McValue.
Every single day, you know, the usual mom stuff.
All right, so you're gonna tell me where we're going now?
Absolutely not.
Why?
I'm telling you till you get there.
I'm telling you.
No way I'm telling you.